At some point, you got to ask yourself, am I living my life or the one everybody else expects me to live? Today, I've got Abigail Gazda on, who's the CEO of Hearts Unleashed, an author, clarity coach, helping people break that mindset. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I was glad to get you on.
I appreciate
So,
that. I'm excited to be here and have a jam session.
I know, right? Let's jump right into it. I want to take it back a little bit before the business, before the coaching, before all of that. Who were you?
Mm. I was probably identified most as student athlete and very often girlfriend. I'm a serial monogamist in general. And I guess high achiever, which some might call overachiever, or, there's certainly negative connotations and negative sides of that spectrum, of that very wide spectrum, but I always had a lot of confidence in I could create whatever I was going for. So, very strong sense of ability, but not always an authentic sense of direction, which is, I think, part of the path we'll go down eventually in this conversation.
I think we all go down that. That's why having coaching is such a big thing.
Yes, definitely.
So I'm actually in integration coaching right now. And so that's the thing that I'm learning. We all have like the same things. It's just
Yeah.
kind of finding people that can help guide us and stick with us down the path.
Yeah.
What were you chasing early on that you don't feel like was actually yours?
My mother's approval. And it could be mom, but each of us, mom, dad, like psychologically and developmentally, the first, 0 to 5, 0 to 8, we really attach to mom and that relationship. And then naturally, as we age, it becomes to dad, usually 8 to 18, somewhere in that range. From 18, 16-ish to 18, it shifts towards a mentor, right? When we get a little older in school, whether that be a coach, a certain teacher, even a mentor in terms of looking up to some sort of idol, like a athlete or a star or a celebrity or whatever. And then it shifts later than like once our prefrontal cortex develops 25 to 28, it then shifts to spirit, God, purpose, consciousness. And so, but for me, I don't know that I really ever for a long I was developmentally behind where I really wanted my mother's attention because she was a full-time single working mom. And so
Mhm.
the presence in my life was just different. The way I knew how to relate to her was through athletics. She was a basketball player, she was a basketball coach, so I became a basketball player, I became a basketball coach, I became a collegiate athlete. Like that's how I knew how to get approval, attention, to be seen as a role model. I've always felt like a role model. I live as a role model even in my online presence, and it's so what have I chased that's not mine? The approval of anybody anywhere all the time. And I have to, even to this day, even though I've integrated that need, it's insatiable. And so I get to stay responsible for it for the rest of ever because it's intoxicating.
Very, very, very relatable. And I think same. I can relate to that for my mom. I felt like my mom was always, it was conditional upon what me agreeing with. And it's like you said, even when you go down the healing process, it's like a wound that is, it's like a scab. It'll get scraped and it'll come open. It's just kind of how you deal with it.
Yeah, totally.
When did you start feeling like something was off with that? With
I didn't. And then life happened. It was full steam ahead down. I had, let's see, I'm just going to do a little bit of timeline. At age
yeah,
26, I got married. At age 27, I ended up divorced, which was terrible. It sucked, but that changed my life and that felt done to me.
mhm.
My ex, we were together for 6 years and we were married for 6 months, and he came to me honestly and said, I feel like I made a mistake. I don't want to be married. Like, he had had his own sort of awakening, but he wasn't having that awakening with me. He was having that with himself, preparing for that himself, and then sort of informed me of what was happening. And so I was on this trajectory of going straight from, student athlete to teacher, which I set out from the like ninth grade on. I just,
Uh-huh.
I knew what I wanted. I went for it. So then it was marriage. Next was house. Next was kids. I had the job, had the career, right? So it was just this, again, full steam ahead. So nothing, I didn't question anything until my world just got absolutely rocked. So when the reality set in that everything I've worked for could go away in a 45-minute conversation, can go away overnight, I became this wounded person who felt super immortal, super vulnerable, not no longer just could survive anything. And I couldn't change that. I couldn't fix that. And I didn't set out to. When my husband admitted like I don't want to be married, I knew right then and there I would never force someone to love me or choose me. And so I accepted that outcome, but it certainly sent me on a path of inquiry. That's when I started questioning everything. That's when nothing made sense. That's when I had no idea of who I was. And so it opened my eyes, and I started just asking myself naturally, like, what do I really care about? What really matters? Because everything I've built my identity on is on shaky ground, and it's not fun. This is not sustainable.
And definitely not fun.
No, no, it's painful, it hurts. Of course, it rips open every wound. Anything I could outrun or gloss over with achievement suddenly was just glaringly obvious and hurt and burned and stung, and I had to deal with that feeling. In fact, for about 2 or 3 months right after that, I didn't deal with it. I doubled down on work. I doubled down on my side hustle. I got really busy. I worked out some more. So I tried to outrun it. And that's when it wasn't working. You can't outrun it. It will come for you. The truth will come for you.
Always, always. You can run, but you cannot hide. What was the moment that you were just like, this isn't it? Like something has to shift or change.
When there was a very specific moment, because at that point I was in direct sales and I'd started that maybe 3 or 4 years before, kicking ass, taking names. Can I cuss on here? Can I say ass?
Of course, yeah, go with it.
Kicking ass,
I
taking
cuss
names.
like a sailor. It's all good.
All good. Okay, good. And so I'm into my business, I'm building it, I'm growing. And the divorce hurt. I was so sensitive and so raw that I persisted with the parties I was hosting for direct sales. And every time someone said no, they didn't want to host, or no, they didn't want to buy, all of a sudden it was like being asked for a divorce all over again. Like every no just hit so deep. So I was like, oh my God. So that was a real pivotal moment, because then I called my upline, my leader, and I was like, I was at the peak of my business, and I said, I am hard stopping. Like I will give over parties that I already have planned. I can't show up. I am not well. Like I had nothing left in the tank and I was hurting. And a little bit more to the timeline is that my divorce happened 3 days before I started a year-long coach training program. So I had already set
Wow.
my sights on coaching. And I was signing up, but it was also in a commitment of growing in my direct sales company. Like I thought they
Yeah.
went hand in hand. But then I told my upline, I said, I can't show up for this. Like it's not in the cards right now. Maybe I'll come back, maybe I won't. And I really never did. But that my coaching colleagues, we were probably 3-ish months into it, and a couple of them asked because I was hurting so much,
Yeah.
and they're like, "We know you have coaching, but are you going to therapy?" And I was like, LOL, no. Like therapy
Yeah.
was just not normalized where I'm from. I've never been to
Taboo,
therapy. I never
very
felt.
taboo.
Yeah, it was still that for me. I never understood it. I'd never been in a therapist's office. I'd hardly been in a doctor's office, honestly. And so it just wasn't on my radar. And they asked a couple months in a row, and I finally said, okay, fine, I'll take a look at this. And it really started the healing process.
I think a lot of people stay stuck because they're scared of what happens if they choose themselves.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
yeah, you know,
It's zero sum game. Like if I choose me, someone else loses me, or, you know, like give and take. And that's a complete lack and scarcity mindset. The abundance mindset is like there's enough for everybody. You know, we're not taking from someone by choosing ourselves.
And it's okay to choose ourselves. That's
That's
the
right.
that's the biggest thing. You know, you
Yeah.
talk about this unlovable story,
Mm.
that thing underneath everything that drives kind of how we show up. What was
Yes.
yours?
What was
What
my
was your
what?
what was yours? What was your story that kind of made you have that mindset?
Yeah. Um, Great question. And I talk a lot about this in my first book, Giving Up, the memoir of a quitter. And it was the thought that downloaded the entire book. When I realized I deeply believe that I am unlovable, I saw every persona or identity I ever played out
Yeah.
to compensate for feeling unlovable. So, perfect daughter, high achiever, good girl, athlete, star student, all those things were to compensate for feeling deeply insufficient, right? And so I think that unlovable story, we all have some version of it. Not enough, not pretty enough, not smart enough. Too much is the same as not enough, like whatever it is. And
Mhm.
I am a deeply sensitive person. And being from the Midwest, that wasn't exactly normal. We pride ourselves on work ethic and grit and hustle and productivity, and and it's not even a bad, not a make wrong either, but it didn't leave much room for how sensitive I was. And so to feel this contrast between how deeply I feel, how much I feel, how affected I am by things that happen versus how much room there was in my world for those feelings and feeling sort of contained or containing them, getting feedback like, quit crying. What are those tears going to do for you? Crying ain't going to fix the problem. Buck up, pick yourself up, or get after it. And so one of the first lines in the book is like, quitters never win and winners never quit. You know, that's what I is deeply embedded in
And
me and what I believe, right? So there was this contrast, this friction, this disalignment that really affected how I felt about myself. And I concluded that I was unlovable. And so I could outperform that unlovability, but I couldn't outlive it. I couldn't rid it. So I just made up for it. Didn't work very well.
wow, wow, that's deep.
Yeah, thanks.
When did you first start noticing that?
Mm. Seriously, only after divorce because it always worked in my favor. And we have a saying in coaching, what got you where you are won't get you where you're going, right? There are these pivotal moments in your life where what worked, just you're a master at the way you are, but you're falling short now. It's not working the way it used to. You can't rely on it. You can't be relied on, right? Like it starts to feel like a failure, like round peg square hole. So after divorce, the old ways just weren't working. And I was also just absolutely tearing apart. Like when my identity fell apart, then I got my hands dirty and I tore it apart deeper, farther, harder, like just went in on it. And so that started to reveal a lot more. And I started to make more room for who I felt I was. And that's
Fi-
just been a continued journey.
Finding your authenticity. Yeah.
Totally. Totally.
It's crazy how you said, because I'm from the South, and so South Midwest, same mindset of, a lot of not a lot of emotional training. So we like learn, I think we both kind of learning later on how to navigate or find out who we are because we don't authentically know who we are because we didn't know how to process emotions. We didn't know how to go through and have love without conditions or feeling like we had to tap dance for it or whatever. So I
Yeah.
felt that like, how did it actually show up like in relationships or how you saw yourself?
Yeah. Great question. I think a lot of my early relationships were codependent ones. Like I saw myself as Abigail and boyfriend, Abigail and fiance, Abigail and husband, right? Like I saw myself in a pair. Even though I feel like a very independent person, I feel like a leader, I felt more valid with a significant other. So I realized I did some math after divorce. I had basically spent about 12 years with a boyfriend, and between boyfriends, maybe 2 to 3 months in between, but I would always go from just one serious boyfriend to another. So from age at freshman, sophomore, 13, 14, 15, on to age 27, 28, I didn't know who I was as a singular person. So I had hobbies. I love crafting. There's a lot of things that are true about me. I didn't make some total unrecognizable shift, right? It's just been a development and an expansion and an expression of who I am. And so my essence has always been there. There's just more permission to be that and her and me, right? And so now relationships are one so much more deep, intimate, authentic, connected, real. And then for me, a good gauge on relationships that I prefer are equal exchange of energy, excuse me, nourishing and me nourishing. So I'm nourished and that person is nourished from our interactions. And so I'm really committed that when people leave an interaction with me, their hearts are fuller and more expressed than when we showed up together, right? And so those are the truest relationships that I tend to cultivate. And then, of course, just authenticity in general, because I know even people I do or don't know that follow online or
Yeah.
are in the peripherals, they see me being authentic and expressed. And I always hope that that grants them their own permission to live authentic and expressed. Fun fact about that, though, it
Yeah.
either inspires you or it activates you. And people go,
Yes.
fuck that bitch. I don't like her. I don't know why I don't like her, but she can eat rocks. Like it's just right. And so it's just, you don't get to pick how people perceive your authenticity, right?
I
You can
talked
only
about it today. I talked about it today on Instagram, and
right.
I was on like social media, and like people comparing themselves based off of social media and stuff like that, and it dilutes. And
Yeah.
people don't like people because people are being authentic, and it's like crazy. But relatable to you, I had my shift after my second divorce, and
Yeah.
after my second divorce was when I really looked at myself, and like my therapist was like, when was the last time you were single? And I was
Yeah.
like, I don't even like it
Yeah.
literally from the time I was like a teenager. And we're talking like 30 something years of me just going from
Yeah.
relationship to relationship. So like a lot of people I feel like are running that on that and don't even realize it.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you call yourself a quitter, but not in the way people think. You're talking about quitting the wrong things, which I love. What do people need to quit right now?
It's a
A
long
lot
list.
of things. A lot of things.
Yeah, well, and I mean, I could prescribe a lot of things, but I think most people, if they just sit with that question, they could answer it immediately. And the phrase I like to use is healthy quitting. So, for an example from the book, it was quitting like suffering alone, right? Giving up DIYing life, like again, this hyper independence, hiding who I am at this point in life, like what it would healthy quitting look like for me is still playing small. I am as successful as I subconsciously want to be. I consciously do want to be more successful than I am. I want a bigger reach. I want to be a New York Times bestseller. I want this. I want that. I want 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. I can say what I want this season, but what's behind what I want is my fear of what I want, right? So healthy quitting right now would look like not would be quitting the fears of trolls on the internet, of people me trying to teach and preach goodness and people making fun of how I look, right? Like that I don't like that. I don't want that. So I stay small where my online community is friendly, right? Like we hang, we like each other. I get good comments. I don't get you see some of those viral posts and they just tear the content creator apart. And it's like, did you even watch the video? Did you even read the caption? This has nothing to do with nothing. And so, like, I don't want that. So healthy quitting would look like quit hiding because you have to teach, you have truth to share, you have hearts to unleash, get up to something that's bigger than you. I could be doing it at the next level. So this season, healthy quitting looks like stepping further into the light and I'm shaking like a leaf. Like that's true at every stage. We have something to really look at how we can be living into our bigness.
That's powerful, powerful, powerful. And like I can see it, like as you're speaking, like I can relate because watching your social media, because I'm so intuitive or whatever, like I can read and I think we're a lot alike. And so like I can see you and that mindset and how like the trolls or whatever. But it's like one of those things that, to be honest, whether you pay small ball or you go large, you're going to have haters. And it's like one of those things
Right.
that I always say, if you have haters, you're doing something right at the end
Yeah.
of the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
What
It
what
is.
are some what are some patterns that you see that a lot of people do over and over?
Boy. I'm going to use my little notepad right here I have in front of me to draw something because this is true to every person. So every person has their what you do or how you be.
Yeah.
And this is a little spiral of evolution, right? So let's say we start here and the line is the trauma in our life. Okay? So here's the infraction, here's the trauma. We grow, but as we grow and up level, we're going to confront that scar at each level of evolution, right? And so as we rise up, we go, I get what people do over and over again. They go, I thought I healed this already. I'm falling back. I'm reverting. And I'm like, no, you've never been this far. You've never been this high. So you don't know how your mommy issues or your daddy issues affect you as $100,000 earner, as a $500,000 earner, and a $1 million earner. Okay? So the mommy issues you had when you were earning 50 grand is not the same as when you're earning 150 grand. And or the pain of your sibling rivalry and how it affects how you date and how you compete with your significant other, like or your children. So I mean, there's all sorts of like what people do over and over. One of those being self-sabotage, another one of those being self-doubt, right? Like playing small and just at being absolutely obliterate ourselves with our own opinions of ourselves. And so, in fact, I'm launching a 365 book about self-criticism so people can spend 365 days deconditioning self-criticism and reconditioning and empowering inner voice.
I think people hold on to identities that are quietly destroying their life.
Yeah.
And what I've found is because it's familiar.
Yeah.
It's difficult for people to step into the light, and the body as a natural defense mechanism wants you to try to stay because it's used to, like you said, it's used to the hamster wheel and the cycle of, and as you evolve that gets uncomfortable for a lot of people, and when they have a scab that's opened up they feel like it, but like you said, a scab while you're making $500,000 and a scab while you're making. Okay. Big difference. Big
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah.
You know,
You know, you said that really well too, because we tend to stick with what's familiar, right? Some of us, like I just said, I stay small because that's what's familiar and I have a sense of control. Some of us stay in toxic relationships or toxic workplaces. Some of us stay poor because that's what's familiar. That's where we know how to behave. Most people don't know how to behave in the realm of their goals, right? It's really uncomfortable up there.
super hard. You've built your platform around turning dreamers into doers. Why do you think so many people are stuck there just thinking about it?
Yeah, great question. And I have a few thoughts that immediately come to mind. So I was sort of prioritizing, but one main thing is there's the difference between what we want and what we don't want. And most people base what they think they want off of what they don't want. I want freedom, right? So we are just choosing the opposite, which is a fix and not the answer. So Dreamers into doers. First off, people getting really clear about what they really want. If you asked me at 16, at 20, at 25, what I thought I really wanted, those answers are not the same at 30, 35, 40. And so it's okay that what we want changes, but most of us never upgrade what we actually want. In fact, I get into a lot of calls with people where I have them realize they have everything they want. Now what? Right? They're just aiming for the same goals their whole life. And most people don't ever realize they either achieve them or set more age appropriate goals. So, and what do you want if it's not up to your mom? What do you want if it's not up to your spouse? What do
That's what I was
you
gonna
want?
say.
Yeah.
It's like
So
chasing validation.
yes, yes. And other people's priorities, society's priorities. What did society tell you you want? What did the capitalism tell you want? The American dream. The American dream is outdated at this point. And I'm not naysaying it either, but like a little bit more originality here. Like look in
Let's be truthful. You're not being a naysayer, but let's just be truthful. It is. There's no such thing. Like,
yeah, it's different than what it was. That's for damn sure.
yeah,
And so not only going from dreaming to doing, knowing what you want, and then most people actually do know how to get there. It'd be like, okay, what are the steps to getting what you want? And we could break that down very logistically. But then there's overcoming what's in the way. And that is mostly subconscious. I call them trolls under the bridge. So if I say I'm here and I want to be here, I have to pass through this terrain to get there. And the only way I'm going to find out what's in the way is by getting closer to it. And I'll go, oh, there's my insecurity. Ooh, there's my fear. Ooh, there's my incompetence, right? And so I get to address each barrier or obstacle as I approach it. Most people think they can hire a coach and game plan their entire life in a coaching call. There's nothing worth, a coaching call is worth nothing if you never get in the game, right? This is the huddle. And so people have to actually apply that to life. And I've fired clients because I say, I cannot coach you anymore. You're not taking aligned action. There's
well,
no amount of coaching I can do for you that will have your work be done. So dreamer to doer is action, aligned and inspired action.
action.
Not action for the sake of action, not busy productivity, right? So actual focused action.
And that's why they call it self work. Like a
Yeah.
lot of people feel like a coach is going to coach them to success. And it's like a coach can coach you, but if you don't put your helmet on and go get in the game, guess what? It matters not. What do you
That's right.
think is the first real shift someone needs to make?
I call that group the enough is enough crowd. The
Ooh,
first shift is to admit I am done being anybody but exactly who I am. Because I've definitely had people come to me wanting more, but I just tell them, call me when you're ready. You're not ready because they're still, it doesn't hurt enough yet to be where they are. I might butcher this phrase. Transformation happens when the discomfort of staying the same outweighs the discomfort of transformation. Transformation isn't sexy, it's not cute, it's not pretty, it's rugged, it's rough, it's dark, it drums up everything. But if you're still in, I am the victim of everyone and everything, I can't pluck you out of that. It's you who's going to be hands on the table. Fuck this, fuck that, fuck them. I'm going for what I want. I'm ready. And I can't spend another fucking minute being anything else or I'm going to lose my shit.
rock
Yeah,
bottom.
right.
Tell people that all the time.
Yeah. So that's the shift. I mean, the rest is the work, but that's what is required. This is a voluntary adventure.
Ooh, I love how you. I'm still in that one. Let me get my notebook. This is a voluntary adventure. You know, if someone's listening right now, what's one thing that they could actually do today to
Mm.
start the shift?
Raise their hand. Raise their hand. Help is just on the other side of asking for it. And most people will stay stuck because they will convince themselves that they're alone, that nobody loves them, that they're not worth it, that nobody's on their side, and that will keep you right where you are. And here's the thing, You get to keep your limitations for as long as you want to fight for them. If you want to go on a transformation journey, you have to become willing to be wrong about everything, because we're going to tear that shit up. Absolutely tear up every fabric of your reality and have you turn it over and ask, is this coming with me? Is this coming with me? Nope, nope, nope. Yep, that's good. Nope, not that part, right? And so raise your hand, ask for help, start. And I love podcasts, I love books, I write them, I record them, I do all that. But getting in front of a professional, you can't hide. You can do a lot of things with books where you convince yourself you get it, but self-awareness without application is worthless.
Delusion.
Yeah. Yeah,
Delusion.
ultimately.
Like
You're
it's
like,
like
"Oh no,
it's like you said, it's like getting people to understand the difference between delusional and reality, because a lot of people don't necessarily have that. They train themselves to think that their delusion is reality and they don't see the world for what it really is.
yeah." And the thing is, there's 8 billion people with 8 billion versions of reality. So who's right about what? Because even mine's wrong or off or relative, and yours is relative. And so it's like, what reality do you actually want? Because the one you created, you're clearly unhappy with or disempowered in.
100%. You know,
Yeah.
you talk about emotional intelligence, and I think people hear that and they think it's soft, but actually, really, it controls everything. What does that actually look like in real life?
For me, I think nervous system regulation is emotional intelligence in action. It's probably the best way I can just say it really flat, because if you're defending yourself, you're in the wrong conversation. Emotional intelligence informs our actions and reactions. We are the observer, not the participant. So this is metacognition, right? Thinking about thinking. So if this is me and I'm the metacognitive one and someone's attacking me, I can watch the attack. I can watch me under attack without response. I can sit back here and decide here's the emotional intelligence, who and how do I want to be about this, right? That to me is emotional intelligence. And nervous system regulation is one of the first things we can start to work on with or without a professional, is just getting your shit grounded and centered, that you don't need to defend, act, react, respond. You owe nobody nothing, right? And so it's just being able to then decide. So I like to say a leader takes a breath before they take a step. So anytime. And I get triggered. Listen, I am not a pacifist. I am not a Zen Buddha. I'm none of that. I back up and I look around and I decide, and then I re-enter and then move, right? To
Yeah.
me, that's as concise as I could put that one.
I'm the same way. So like I'm very not a Buddhist and very much not passive. But I've learned that acting out of emotion, and especially when you're activated or triggered, it always ends up negatively. So, like, one of the things that I really learned to practice with is whenever I get activated, triggered, or whatever with somebody, like I say, hey, I need to step back and process and let
Yeah.
me think about it before, which is crazy because previously the old me was like, I had to talk about it right now. Like, we need to work this out and we have to, because it was like, I felt like if we didn't, then you were going to leave and abandon me and all of those issues. 100% taking that time to step back, process, and then deal with it not out of emotion, but out of reality and not the delusion of the emotion, because that
Yeah,
sends you down a rabbit hole.
right.
What are people getting wrong about themselves emotionally?
Um, it kind of I would definitely go back to what I said just about how tough we can be on ourselves, how little we give ourselves credit and acknowledgement. So I don't think we build ourselves up as much as we could be. I don't think we can see ourselves as clearly as a professional can. What do people get wrong about themselves? I want to say something we also have sort of talked about at this point, which is like the identity you mentioned, which is just solidifying and calcifying identities we've always been and only ever seeing ourselves that way. That completely limits our potential, our opportunities, our vision, right? Like our reality. If you want opportunity but you see yourself as worthless, you are not a frequency match for the opportunities you're desperate for. And so yeah, just seeing ourselves way less than we truly are.
Yeah, I think a lot of people aren't honest with themselves. And like I say delusion a lot because I was there. I
Mm,
think people stay in a delusional mindset because it's comfortable and they just stay busy or distracted, whether it's like social media or
oh
working
yeah.
out too much or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, that's a great point. Distraction is one of our greatest deterrents from our growth.
It's hard to look in the mirror. It's easier to and go get on social media or Netflix.
Yeah, disassociating in any way possible.
100%. You know, you talk about heart centered leadership, but we live in a world that rewards the highlight reel. How do you stay authentic in that?
I love that question. And I want to add that heart centered leadership is also, I would call it emotionally intelligent leadership, right? So
Yeah.
it's again, it's standing back and deciding first and then taking action. So because heart centered leadership doesn't always mean you're at the front of the room, you're at on stage, you're someone that many people follow. To me, heart-centered leadership is a good deed that doesn't get recorded and posted. It's asking someone how they're really doing. It's answering questions authentically. It's being a great listener. It's at the grocery store and at the bank and picking up in the pickup line. I don't think it's always a big grand gesture, and I also don't think it is daily recognition either. And so just like what does being yourself look and feel like? And then what does allowing others to be themselves look and feel like? So I feel like inclusivity is a huge part of this. I very much operate by live and let live. That doesn't mean I agree with every way that everyone lives. It also doesn't mean that I have any authority to tell them how to live. And I want to say this because I think it's important. I say beware of any coach who's telling you they have the secret to how you should be being. I think that coaches should meet people where they are and guide them right from where they are and from where that person wants to go. Because I work with people on healing, I work with people on business consulting, on publishing, on building whatever, scaling businesses. So plenty health journeys, relationship journeys. It doesn't really matter what the person is set out for. My job is to simply be a mirror and excavate, right, those barriers, those blocks, and navigate how to get where they're going. So
And walk along with them so that
yeah.
because like you said most of the time we have the answers ourselves, we just
Yes.
need to take off those goggles that have water in them to see. And you
Yeah.
said something, it's like you were in the room when I was talking right before this podcast. That's one of the things we were talking about in is inclusivity, right? And I
Yeah.
think we've gotten to a place within our society that people are so caught up in wanting to be right and not wrong. And I think that's one of the problems. You have people that are far right, people that are far left, people,
Yeah.
and it's like people can't just like, I can love you. We don't have to think the same things. We don't have to like believe in the same things. It's not my job to tell you what you should believe in and what's right or what's wrong. Whatever you feel like is the right thing or whatever. If you like it, I have a saying, if you like it, I love it, right? And that's not for me to say. I just wish we would really get to a place where we had inclusivity and like people could just love people for who they are. We don't have to debate statistics. We don't have to look at articles. It's like, bro, just chill. Let people
Yeah.
be, you know?
Yeah. And something that's really missing online is nuance. Like that it's not all one answer, there's so many nuances to conversation, to opinions, to lifestyles. And so I think there's a beautiful part of that in our age of information and busting up a lot of barriers is just the other day I saw like this guy in all African garb singing a country song. And I was like, what am I looking at right now? And it was just like, it was hilarious to me, but there's no freaking rules. Like, there's really no rules. And so, nuance, obscurity, ambiguity, like all that stuff, it's just all so fluid now. I find it hilarious, actually.
Especially being from the South and you being from the Midwest, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
If there's someone listening right now and they feel like they've been living for everyone else, what would you say to them?
One, I love you. It's okay to come out now. You will be loved, and there's life on the other side of what you're afraid to lose. We're mostly just scared. And we are tribal beings. We are community beings, and so we are afraid of getting kicked out of the club. And so we do what we can to fit in instead of find where we belong. And so I love you. It's safe to come out now.
About that one. You know what? I respect the heck out of you even more having this conversation. I just want to say thank you for coming on. Like, it's so good and breathtaking to have a real conversation where there's light and love. And not just like the highlight reel, but the stuff underneath it. I know people are going to get a lot from this. I'm going to put the links for your books and stuff in the bio on YouTube. Where can people find you and stay connected with you?
Yeah, Instagram is one of my favorite places to hang out. So I am Instagale, but Abigail Rose Gazda. I own the first like 8 pages of Google of my name. You Google me, you will find me. If I find me in one place, you find me in every place. I have plenty of resources, and I appreciate you sharing that with your audience and sharing me with your audience. It's great
No,
to be.
I appreciate it. It's so good to have somebody that is a light in this world and not afraid to speak up and speak out. So one thing I want to tell you is I know, like you said, you're shaky with stepping into something higher, but just know from the heart, like what you're doing and what you're creating. There's more lovers that you have than haters, and I appreciate you.
Thank you for
Thank
that.
you so
I feel
much.
acknowledged.
I'm glad. I appreciate you. Take it easy, and we'll see you guys next week on the front porch.